What's going on, good people? What's going on? In partnership with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasting Network, this is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique.
I'm Dexter.
And the topic for today is what happens in this house stays in this house.
Yeah.
Now, we done heard this plenty of times in different ways, and we know why, for the most part, why some people do say it and why some families do say it. But, what happens in this house stays in this house is said for many different reasons. And one of those reasons, let's just be honest, man, because we just want to make sure we all on the same page. Majority of the time, or sometimes we say this, we're referring to children. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you work with a few kids, and I've worked with very young kids, as young as kindergarten and first grade and so forth. And let's be honest, kids can't hold water, mm-hmm. So I can get why, we say what happens in this house stays in this house. And there's some things that, some families or some people that there's some things that you just don't want to discuss. Mm-hmm. There's some things that we just don't want the next person to know. But on the flip side, we had some conversations, and, that can mean something else.
Mm-hmm.
That can sometimes be a problematic statement in some cases. But, let's dive deeper into, what stays in this house.
Yeah.
What happens in this house stays in this house.
Well, I mean, you brought up a good point, because, first thing first, we don't want our children telling them the passcode to the house. I have to get on my kids about that all the time. It's not everybody's business for other people to know how much money you make. So, of course, you want to secure those things. You want to safeguard those things. But I think what this really boils down to is a lot of traumatic events happen in what's supposed to be a safe space. Your home is supposed to be a safe space. And I think the whole what happens in the house stays in the house has become kind of a buffer to keep people from looking for the help that they need under the pretense of, well, it'll just resolve itself in the house.
Right.
And we got to get to the point where the overall well-being of the individual can't be covered because there's a shame associated mm-hmm. with, this hidden secret becoming publicized, And I really think that at the root of this statement, what it really is a sense of shame. And the shame projects itself as fear of, if this gets out, it's going to, exactly. We're going to be perceived negatively,
right?
And so at the expense of the person who was traumatized, we have to ensure that this secret is not leaving the house.
Most definitely. I do think the home should, at all places, the home should be a safe place.
Yeah.
And I think, especially when we're talking about kids and even, adults' mindset as well, I think we all need someone to go to outside of the home.
Yeah.
But someone that we can trust, someone who's positive, not just anybody. I do think we need to identify, especially for kids, identify who are those people that mm-hmm. they can go to, to speak about certain things. Because let's just be honest, we're not prepared to speak on everything. We're probably not the best ones to talk to about everything, but at the same time, they need somebody, maybe a teacher, maybe if you go to church, someone in the church, identifying those uncles, those aunts, those cousins and so forth. And they do need those people. I've worked with a lot of clients, especially when I had to do a lot of home visits with the elderly. And, they're very big on that, with that mindset, they're very particular, and they have every right to be, but they're very particular about what information they put out. If they don't have to put out certain information or certain private information about themselves, they don't want to do it.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? So many of them, because of their mindset and because they don't want to share certain things, many of them will turn down certain programs that will help them out in certain areas that they need. Because you know what? I don't want to do this because I'm giving out too much of my information. I ain't got time to be doing this. And that speaks to, I bring it up because that speaks to the strong mindset that they have, no matter if it will help them out. You know, I'm just don't want to share this because I don't want you all in my business. You know, I think that's a big thing with what happens in this house stays in this house. I don't want everybody in my business, you know, but because we don't want to speak on those things, you know, in some areas it can really affect us.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting that you brought up the elderly because, you know, that's, you know, the other side of the spectrum.
Most definitely.
You know, and you brought the subject in talking about children. And so if you think about it, you know, this belief and this thought process is often introduced as a child. You know, this type of secrecy, you know, this within the confines of the home. And so, you know, let's hit on several different things. The first thing is that because I know people who have experienced some pretty horrific things at the house. You get what I'm saying? And a lot of the people who have enacted these horrific things have labels such as, you know, dad, mom, uncle, brother, cousin, you know what I'm saying? And so if you can't trust the people in your family, and if you're telling them that it has to stay in the house, what it now does is it casts this shadow of doubt as far as your ability to trust anybody. And so it's hard to say, hey, you know, let's go seek the outside help if you've come up in an environment that has deterred you from seeking help. If your first line of defense is the one who's turned against you and who's violated your trust, it will always be hard to be trustworthy of other people. And so in a lot of cases, what you have is adults who have grew up in that environment where it's like, hey, this is my business. I've been taught not to share these things with you. And once again, I'm a pretty guarded person, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I don't go out there just broadcasting things, but I'm guarded because, you know, I understand the necessity to hold some things close, to keep some things secure. What I'm talking about today is the necessity of people being afraid, you know, the necessity of people being able to talk, but they're afraid to talk because they don't know how to. And I think in a lot of cases, that's what happens. People don't know how to have these conversations, you know, because of things that they've encountered throughout years. And, you know, and I'll be very transparent. I know people who have been molested by family members. I know people who experience drug addiction in the house, who've experienced domestic violence. And they were always told that you can't tell this to anybody because if you say something, this family dynamic is going to break up. And so what they were asked to sacrifice was their own well-being for the quote unquote greater good of the family. And that became a learned behavior that ultimately followed them into adulthood. And now they're starting to mirror that in their own families now, you know. Not only are they mirroring that in their own families because they never knew how to seek out that help, they're starting to self-medicate. You know, they have, you know, violence and rage issues, and it's all attributed to the fact that they never got that outlet, that healthy outlet when they were young.
Right, most definitely. If you all are tuning in, please share the broadcast. You know, it's something that you hit on, you know, when there's a lot of abuse, molestation, and so forth that's happening within the family. And oftentimes we'll hear stories all the time that they were told that, you know, you can't share this, you can't share this, and so forth. And part of that is the fear that, you know what, if you do share this, this is going to break up the family. And I do think this is a large contributing factor, not the only factor, but a large contributing factor to why people avoid seeking help. You know, one of the biggest reasons why people don't want to seek help about certain things because I just don't want everybody in my business. That's something that you hear on a regular basis, and it's pretty unfortunate that, you know, I have a family member who was molested at a young age, and she would tell a particular family member what happened and what was going on. and she didn't respond to it the way somebody should.
Yeah.
And because she didn't pay any mind, she didn't pay any attention, it continued to happen. You get what I'm saying? And that traumatized her in so many different ways. And she responded, you know, as with alcohol. You know, she was alcoholic. And every time she would get around, she would get drunk and so forth. I remember being young, I didn't understand why she was doing that.
Yeah.
You know, I just knew that every time there was alcohol around, we had to monitor her.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? That's the way I seen everybody respond to that. You get what I'm saying? But sometimes when she was around and she was at the table, she would just start crying. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
And it was as if the person, the other family member that was there, she just acted as if nothing has happened. So she always acted as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So it was like you left me hanging, and not just left me hanging, but you left me vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? And she didn't seek help until several years in adulthood. You get what I'm saying? And she finally, you know, tried to talk about it. But here's the kicker. It was the way all the other family members reacted to it. No, don't talk about it. No, we're trying to have a good time. Don't speak about it. So I really do think this is a statement that we have to really address, because there's a lot of things within the family we don't want to attack, we don't want to address. And it's a big reason why, and we spoke about generational curses and things, you know, the cycle that continue to happen because we don't address it. And we just think because we don't talk about it, then it's as if it never happened.
Yeah.
But we're just forgetting about the person who was wounded, who actually had that experience and so forth. So it was very confusing, and now that I'm older and I understand the whole full story, now it makes me say, oh my goodness, I can't believe all this was happening. Now I understand. And it was almost overwhelming when I had a lot of understanding to why she was drinking the way she was drinking, why she was crying out of nowhere, why there was arguments, and they was telling her just to don't talk about that, don't worry about that. And we don't want to have those conversations. And I think as a family unit, we got to be able to discuss that. Even if we're saying what happens in this house stays in this house, even then we still got to discuss it. We're already telling people don't have it outside of the home. But the thing is, are you even having it inside the home?
That's deep. Man, bro, you went there on that one. And the sad thing is that first and foremost, the whole what happens in the house stays in the house. I don't have an issue with the comment. You know what I'm saying? I think, but what I have an issue with is that the reason why it's necessary to say that, you know, is it because you're trying to hide some kind of indiscretion, you know, and like I said, once again, the person who's being maybe traumatized has no say in you know, getting, you know, whole in that area. Like, is it fear of something that you know that you're doing that's wrong, that's causing you to have that comment? And once again, you know, being and having experienced similar situations, what it boiled down to was there was no intention on resolving the issue. You know what I'm saying? So you're telling, hey, you know, what happens in the house stays in the house, but you're still not addressing the issue. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, what it is that there's a hope that time will mask, you know, what happened. You know what I'm saying? And the truth is that, you know, well, we're not going to talk about it. And by not talking about it, it'll just self-correct. You know, it never self-corrects. You know, one of the things that, you know, I often talk to people, and I always give them this analogy. I say, hey, you know, if you break your arm in time, will it heal? You know, because everybody says, you know, time heals all wounds. And, you know, and most people are kind of quick to say, yeah, because, you know, they're familiar with that expression. But then when they start to think about it, they say, well, actually, you know what? nah, it won't heal. It'll still be out of place. And I said, well, that's right. I said, you know, it's the process over time that heals. You know what I'm saying? If you break your arm, you're going to have to set it. It's going to have to get set. You're going to have to put a cast on it. And then over time, it's going to heal. That was a process. And the issue is that a lot of times when we're talking about issues like these, there's no process. We just hope that if we don't talk about it, it'll be resolved. And because, you know, we're not giving attention to it, what we have is we have people who are hurt and they're manifesting their hurt and nobody seems to know why they're acting out. You know what I'm saying? Now they're an adult and, you know, now you're embarrassing me by your actions. But what you failed to realize was where was the protection when the offense took place. And even if you couldn't protect them in the instance, where was the resolution when you became aware of the issue? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I couldn't protect you when you got traumatized, but now that I'm aware of it, let's get this fixed. You know what I'm saying? What was the fix? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because even in the fix, that could have began the process of healing. But a lot of what we have is we have people who don't have that process, and all we have is years of being reminded of what happened to them. And now here they are as an adult trying their best to reconcile it, but they don't have anything to really say, hey, look, this person was there for me. You know, they don't have any of that. And so they're doing the best they can to make life as they know it work.
Yeah. And I'm glad you went over the statement. We're not necessarily saying the whole statement is wrong, but it is a blanket statement for a lot of things. And I think that's the issue with how we're using it. I do hate time heals all wounds. I think that is a bad statement. I think sometimes it's a lazy statement. Yeah. And what's that? What was that thing called that we sometimes use with clients? It's almost like a family tree.
Oh, genogram.
Yeah, genogram.
I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, one of the things I won't go too much in depth with. One of the things about a genogram, you know, that we'll highlight is when we're working with a client and they may address a certain issue. One of the things that a genogram would highlight is that the issue didn't start with you.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying? And I think. And that's what I really want to focus on. Sometimes some of the things that we're dealing with, we almost respond to it or look at it as if it started with me. It was, it stems from me. But the idea is to really keep in mind that in many cases it didn't start with you. So with knowing that should even highlight even more why it's so important for us to stop and really have this conversation with our family members, with our kids and so forth. You know, even being transparent with your kids and saying, and not even assuming that they're going to have this problem, but look, I dealt with X, Y, and Z. This is what happened to me. And because that's very important for them to know, because there's a good chance, I mean, they came from you. There's a good chance they may be dealing with it as well. But with the process, we're not talking about the process as if it's easy. It's not simple. When is the right timing? There's probably no perfect time, you know, to bring something traumatizing up, to bring something up that may even split the family up or whatever the case may be. But the fact of the matter is, it needs to be brought up to the forefront. So there's no perfect timing, but we do need to, you know, it takes time to build up that encouragement, that courage to spill that out, to explain what happened, what you're dealing with and so forth, what happened to you, because it's a lot. You just don't know how they're gonna respond. You don't know what's gonna happen next. Are they gonna just stop loving you? Are they gonna just kick you to the curb? Because it does happen, but it's not easy. But it's very, very important to understand that many things that we're dealing with, it didn't start with you. So if you don't speak up on it, there's a good chance that you may continue on that cycle.
Man, you know, when I was preparing for this, you know, for my talking points, and you know, you already referenced the genogram. You know, one of the things I talk about quite often is, you know, biblically, you know, there's examples of how successive generations are worse than their predecessors, what we know to be generational curses. And, a lot of what we learn is inherent, you know what I'm saying? And if you have an inherent wrong example, and if it's not corrected, now it becomes your norm.
Yeah.
And now your norm becomes the next generation's norm. And so if you came up in an environment where you saw abuse and it was never handled correctly, then it becomes your reality. And so there's a greater likelihood that abuse will be commonplace when you start to have your own family. And that's the significance, I believe, of what we've been talking about, particularly lately. A lot of the subject matters that we've been talking about is that, there's a tendency to not address these issues as they come up. And once again, your home is supposed to be the safe place, you know what I'm saying? And if you're being traumatized in your safe place, you know what I'm saying? Imagine what that does to your psyche. You get what I'm saying? Like the place that's supposed to be your refuge, if that becomes your hell, then, you're being set up for failure when you go on the outside world.
Yeah.
And then if you you got to come back home to this hell, and the people who are there are telling you don't say anything about this, then, or it's going, pretty much in your mind, it's going to be worse. You're led to feel like it's going to be worse for you if you talk about it. So by not talking about it, hopefully things will get better. They'll ease, and I'll just have to work it out for myself.
Yeah.
But imagine a young person. What does your process look like, a young person, when you don't even have the tools and the resources to really heal? You get what I'm saying? And it's just it's difficult to imagine, but this is the reality for a lot of people. And once again, I want to be pretty balanced about presenting this. When people in your household talk about it, even if you're not equipped to handle it, you still have a responsibility to do something with what you're hearing. And I think a lot of times we take this approach where we choose to be naive. You know what I'm saying? If I don't hear about it, I'm not responsible for it. And I really believe that we are at a stage in life where a lot of our unaddressed issues are really starting to be, for lack of a better word, being exposed right now. And the exposure is forcing us to give attention to these things that we should have given attention to a long time ago.
Yeah, I do think we're in this season where a lot of people are getting that courage to speak up.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue seeing more and more people speak up and speak out. And when you've been holding something in for so long and you just don't know what else to do, it's going to come out. And but one of the biggest habits that I see in society is that we will downplay someone's truth or experience because of when they chose to come out. And keep in mind that just because they waited a day, 2 days, a year, 20 years, their experience is their experience, their truth is their truth. That's what happened to them.
Yeah.
And no matter how long that they waited, how quick did they responded or told someone, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it happened to them. And we have to get out of the habit of not taking people serious. You get what I'm saying? I mean, because they waited. We got to also understand we can't speak on a traumatic experience. Sometimes one of the things that I see is, if I got raped, I would have went to the police that day. You don't really know how you would have responded in that situation. It's a traumatic situation, and it's very disrespectful, and it lacks compassion and empathy because we're not willing to take time out and say, you know what, that's a tough situation. I don't know how I would have responded in that situation. You get what I'm saying? Because sometimes when things happen to you, you're just trying to get your thoughts in order. You're overwhelmed. You don't know what happened to you. You're still trying to wake up. You get what I'm saying? And sometimes because of society, we don't even believe that people are going to believe us in the first place. You get what I'm saying? So it really does people a disservice, women and men who are speaking out. I don't care how long they wait. The fact of the matter is their experience, is their truth. and we have to stop discrediting people because of how long they waited.
You know, and I'll conclude my final point with this. We have to stop devaluing and minimizing the people who share, once again, you know, these experiences, these events that happen to them for the sake of protecting someone who shouldn't have caused the act anyway.
Right.
You know, a lot of times, you know, you're more conscious of protecting the victimizer than you are for standing up for the person who's been victimized, you know. And the reality is that once again, a lot of this stuff could have been minimized if it was addressed head on when it happened, you know what I'm saying? And so, but what it is that when this period of time finally brings this exposure that we're talking about, now everybody's concerned with, once again, the reputation. Yeah. But reputation can't succeed the health. It can't be greater than the health of those that you've been called to take care of. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Once again, there is a responsibility. So responsibility supersedes reputation is what I'm getting at. You know, and if we get to that place, I think we'll start to really see that healing and the know-how to take care of those who are under our care.
Most definitely. Anything else you want to share before we get off, man?
No, my brother, that was it. If you have not had a chance to check out our website, please visit us at whenmenopenup.com. We got some good events coming up. We're going to be speaking at the African American Male Initiative at the Black Male Leadership Summit here this month. We got some other things coming up in the weeks to come, so we're excited about that. But as always, we definitely appreciate you guys just participating with us on our show. If you're unable to catch us live on Facebook or even Instagram, please feel free to check out our stuff on all of our platforms via satellite radio. So thank you.
Most definitely. And if you want to help us take this to the next level, you're more than welcome to donate and visit WYTV7.org. And if you have any suggestions, any topic suggestions, anything that you feel like we're just not highlighting and we're just neglecting and so forth, please DM us, inbox us on Facebook, and even email us at whenmenopenup@gmail.com. And once again, visit whenmenopenup.com. And let us know, give us some feedback. If you think we missed on something, you think something that we need to hit on, let us know in the comment section and so forth. But in partnership with WYTV7 Christian Broadcaster Network, this is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique Bond.
I'm Dexter Packers.
And we are. See you next week. Thank you.